Sarah Jane Callahan's knees hit the frozen ground. The rope slipped from her bleeding hands. Behind her, 7 children huddled in a broken wagon, watching their mother fall. "Mama!" Her daughter's scream cut through the howling wind. "Mama, get up!" But Sarah couldn't move. 8 months pregnant, 3 days without food, her body had finally surrendered what her will refused to give. This is the story of a dying widow and the one-legged cowboy who refused to let her go. Stay with me until the end and comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. The wagon wheel cracked against a hidden rock. Sarah heard that awful splintering sound and knew they were done. "Mama, the wheel!" "I know, Abby." Sarah's voice came out raw, scraped hollow by 3 days of cold and hunger. "I know." She dropped the rope she'd been using to pull the wagon and walked back to assess the damage. The left rear wheel had split clean through. No fixing it. Not out here. Not with what they had. 7 pairs of eyes watched her from inside the wagon's torn canvas cover. 7 children waiting for her to perform another miracle. 7 reasons she couldn't afford to break. "Can we fix it?" Benjamin asked. Her 8-year-old son had his father's stubborn chin and his father's way of asking questions he already knew the answer to. "No, baby, we can't." "Then what do we do?" Sarah looked at the endless stretch of white before them. Snow had been falling for 2 days straight. The trail, what was left of it, had disappeared under drifts that reached her knees in places. They were somewhere in Wyoming territory, maybe 30 miles from Fort Laramie, maybe 50. She'd lost track after the attack. "We walk," she said. "Mama, the little ones can't walk in this." Abigail climbed down from the wagon, her thin coat wrapped tight around her 10-year-old frame. "Samuel's feet are already frostbit. Baby Hannah won't stop crying. And you?" "I'm fine." "You're 8 months pregnant and you haven't eaten since—" "I said I'm fine." The words came out sharper than Sarah intended. She saw Abigail flinch, saw the hurt flash across her daughter's face, before it was replaced by that careful blankness children learned when they'd seen too much too young. "I'm sorry." Sarah pulled Abigail close, feeling her daughter's bones through the thin fabric. They were all bones now. All sharp edges and hollow spaces where flesh used to be. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. I didn't mean to snap." "It's okay, Mama." "No, it's not. None of this is okay." Sarah looked at the wagon at the children inside. Her 2 and the 5 they'd collected along the way, orphans of the same tragedy that had made her a widow. The attack had come 4 days ago. A small wagon train, 8 families heading west before winter closed the passes. They'd been warned about the dangers bandits weather the territory itself, but desperation made people brave. Or stupid. Sarah still wasn't sure which. James had been driving their wagon when the riders came. He'd grabbed his rifle, shouted for everyone to get down, and taken a bullet through the chest before he'd fired a single shot. The other men had fallen just as fast. 6 armed men against a dozen raiders who knew exactly what they were doing. The bandits had taken everything. Horses, food supplies, weapons. They'd left the women and children alive, barely with 2 damaged wagons and nothing else. Mrs. Patterson had died the first night. Just stopped breathing in her sleep, her body giving up what her mind refused to accept. Mrs. Chen and Mrs. Morrison had lasted until the 2nd day before the cold took them. Sarah had buried them all, digging shallow graves in frozen ground with nothing but a broken shovel and prayers that felt empty. That left her alone with 7 children, 2 broken wagons, and a baby growing inside her that kicked against her ribs like it was demanding to know what kind of world it was being born into. "Eli!" Sarah called to the oldest orphan, a 9-year-old boy with dark hair and eyes that had gone flat and empty since watching his parents die. "Help me get everyone out. We're taking what we can carry." "Yes, ma'am." Eli moved without expression, mechanical like a puppet whose strings were being pulled by someone who didn't quite know how to work them. They unloaded what little remained, a single blanket torn but still warm. A canteen with maybe 2 swallows of water frozen inside. A knife that had belonged to James. A small pouch of dried beans that wouldn't feed 7 children for a single meal. Sarah divided the supplies into bundles the older children could carry. Abigail took the blanket. Benjamin took the canteen. Eli took the beans and knife. The younger ones, Ruth, Samuel, Lily, had nothing to carry but themselves. And baby Hannah. 14 months old, too weak to cry anymore, her small body burning with fever against Sarah's chest. "We walk until we find shelter," Sarah said. "Stay together, hold hands. Don't let go of each other for anything." "How far?" Ruth asked. 7 years old, Eli's little sister with red hair that had turned dull and brittle from malnutrition. "As far as we need to." They started walking. Sarah went first, breaking trail through snow that sometimes reached her thighs. The children followed in a line behind her, each one holding the hand of the one before them. A chain of small bodies linked together against the vastness of the wilderness. The wind picked up. It came from the north, carrying ice crystals that stung exposed skin and worked their way through every gap in their clothing. Sarah had given her coat to Samuel, whose own had been too thin. Now she walked in just a dress and shawl, the cold seeping into her bones with every step. "Mama, I'm tired." Lily's voice drifted from somewhere behind her. 4 years old. The youngest of the orphans, with blonde curls that were now matted with ice. "I know, sweetheart. Just a little farther." "You said that before." "And I'll say it again until we get there." "Get where?" Sarah didn't answer. She didn't have an answer. They walked. The sun, hidden behind thick clouds, began its descent toward the horizon. The temperature dropped. Sarah's feet went numb, then her legs, then her hands, where she clutched baby Hannah against her swollen belly. "Mrs. Sarah." Samuel's voice small and frightened. 6 years old, an orphan whose parents had been school teachers heading west to start a new school. "Mrs. Sarah, I can't feel my feet anymore." "Keep walking, Samuel. Moving keeps the blood flowing." "But it hurts." "I know. Keep walking anyway." Another hour. Maybe 2. Time had become meaningless, measured only in steps and breaths, and the growing weight of the children's silence behind her. Ruth stumbled. Sarah heard the small cry, and turned to see the girl on her knees in the snow, too exhausted to get up. "Ruth, honey, you have to stand." "I can't." "Yes, you can." Sarah waded back through the snow, every step a battle against her own failing body. "Come on, I'll help you." She pulled Ruth to her feet, felt the girl's weight sag against her. Ruth was small for 7, made smaller by weeks of insufficient food. Sarah could lift her easily, or she could have before. Now her arms shook with the effort. "Eli, take Hannah." Eli appeared at her side, his face blank, but his hands gentle as he took the baby. Sarah hoisted Ruth onto her back, feeling her spine protest and her belly tighten with a contraction that wasn't quite a contraction. Not yet, she thought desperately. Please, not yet. They kept walking. The snow fell harder. The wind screamed. The children stopped talking, stopped crying, stopped doing anything but putting one foot in front of the other with the mechanical determination of creatures too young to understand they were dying. "Mama," Abigail's voice close behind her. "Mama, I see something." Sarah looked up. Her vision had gone blurry, frost forming on her eyelashes, but she could just make out a dark shape ahead. A rock formation, maybe, or trees, something that might offer shelter from the wind. "There," she said. "We're going there." New energy flooded her legs. Not much, but enough. She pushed forward, breaking trail with renewed purpose, Ruth's weight somehow lighter on her back. They reached the rocks as the last gray light faded from the sky. It wasn't much a cluster of boulders that formed a rough windbreak on 3 sides, but it was something. Sarah set Ruth down and immediately began clearing snow from the ground. Everyone inside, against the rocks, huddled together. The children obeyed, too tired to argue, too cold to do anything but seek warmth from each other. Sarah arranged them carefully, older ones on the outside, younger ones in the middle. baby Hannah at the center, where the most body heat would collect. The blanket. She held out her hand. Abigail passed it to her, and Sarah spread it over all 7 children, tucking the edges around their small bodies. "Where will you sleep, Mama?" Benjamin asked. "Right here next to you." But first, she needed to make sure they'd survive the night. She gathered what dead branches she could find near the rocks, her frozen fingers barely able to grip the wood. She tried to strike sparks from James's knife against a stone. Once, twice, a dozen times. Nothing. Her hands were shaking too badly. The tinder was too wet. The wind kept blowing out any spark that caught. "Let me try." Eli appeared beside her, his young face serious. "My pa taught me." Sarah hesitated, then handed him the knife. She watched as his small hands, steadier than hers, worked the steel against the stone. Spark. 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 A tiny flame caught on a shred of dried bark. Eli cupped his hands around it, protecting it from the wind, feeding it tiny pieces of tinder until it grew strong enough to catch the larger wood. "You did it," Sarah's voice cracked. "Eli, you did it." Pa said fire's the difference between living and dying out here. Eli fed more wood to the growing flames. Guess he was right. The fire grew. Warmth began to push back against the cold. The children stirred, drawn to the heat like moths, their pale faces lit orange by the dancing flames. Sarah checked on each of them. Samuel's feet were bad. The skin had gone waxy and white, the first stage of frostbite, but they'd warm with time. Ruth and Lily were shivering violently, their small bodies working overtime to generate heat. Benjamin and Abigail looked exhausted but stable. And Hannah? Sarah's heart clenched. The baby's fever had spiked. Her tiny body was burning hot even as she lay unmoving, her breathing shallow and rapid. "She's getting worse." Abigail had noticed too. "Mama, what do we do?" "We keep her warm. We get fluids into her. We pray." "Is praying going to be enough?" Sarah looked at her daughter, saw the fear and doubt in her eyes. 10 years old and already losing faith. Already understanding that the world was cruel and prayers weren't always answered. "I don't know, sweetheart, but it's what we have." They settled in for the night. Sarah positioned herself between the fire and the children, trying to block what wind still made it past the rocks. Her belly cramped periodically, not labor, not yet, just her body's protest against everything she was putting it through. She should eat something, they all should. But the dried beans were all they had, and she couldn't bring herself to divide them. Tomorrow. If they made it to tomorrow, she'd figure out food. The night crawled past. Sarah kept the fire going, feeding it wood as sparingly as she could to make their meager supply last. The children slept in fits and starts, whimpering in their dreams, crying out for parents who would never answer. Around midnight, the snow stopped. The clouds parted, revealing a sky full of stars so bright they seemed close enough to touch. The temperature plummeted even further, the dry cold settling over the land like a death shroud. Sarah felt herself fading. Her hands had stopped shaking, a bad sign she knew. Hypothermia did that. Made you feel warm when you were freezing. Made you sleepy when staying awake was the only thing keeping you alive. "Stay awake," she muttered to herself. "Stay awake. The children need you." But her eyes kept drifting closed. Her head kept dropping. The fire began to die as she forgot to feed it, and she couldn't summon the energy to care. "Mama," a small voice cutting through the fog. "Mama, wake up." Sarah jerked upright. Lily was standing in front of her, the 4-year-old's face pale in the starlight. "What is it, sweetheart?" "I'm hungry." Such a simple statement. Such an impossible problem. "I know, baby. We'll find food tomorrow." "Promise?" Sarah hesitated. She'd been making promises for days now, promises she wasn't sure she could keep. But what else could she do? "I promise." Lily nodded solemnly and went back to the huddle of children. Sarah watched her go, feeling something crack open in her chest. These children, all 7 of them, were depending on her, trusting her, believing she could save them. And she was failing them. The fire had gone out. Sarah tried to restart it, but her hands wouldn't cooperate. The knife kept slipping from her frozen fingers. The sparks wouldn't catch. After a dozen attempts, she gave up. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the sleeping children. "I'm so sorry. I tried." She curled up next to them, pulling as many small bodies against her as she could, trying to share what little warmth she had left. Her belly contracted again, harder this time, a warning she couldn't afford to heed. Not yet, she begged whatever god might be listening. "Please, let me get them somewhere safe first. Then you can take me. Just let me finish this." The night stretched on. Sarah drifted in and out of consciousness. Her dreams filled with James's face, with her parents' voices, with memories of warmth and safety that felt like they belonged to someone else. Dawn came slowly, the sky lightening from black to gray to a pale, sickly white. Sarah woke to find frost coating her hair and clothes, her body stiff and aching in ways she couldn't describe. She tried to stand. Her legs buckled. She tried again, grabbing the rocks for support, hauling herself upright through sheer stubborn will. The children were still sleeping, still breathing. That was something. But they couldn't stay here. They'd eaten the last of the beans for breakfast, a few mouthfuls each, barely enough to taste, and there was no more water. If they didn't find help today, they wouldn't survive another night. "Everyone up." Her voice came out as a croak. "We have to keep moving." The children stirred, reluctant, exhausted. Eli helped the younger ones to their feet. Abigail took charge of baby Hannah, whose fever had somehow broken during the night, leaving her weak but alert. They started walking. Sarah didn't bother with the rope anymore. She just walked, and the children followed. One foot in front of the other. Again. 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 The morning passed in a blur of white. The snow was deeper here, sometimes reaching Sarah's waist. She had to lift each leg deliberately, fighting against the weight of it, her pregnant belly making every movement awkward and painful. Around midday, or what she guessed was midday, Ruth collapsed. "I can't," the girl sobbed. I can't. Sarah picked her up, added Ruth's weight to everything else she was carrying, kept walking. An hour later, Samuel fell, then Lily, then Benjamin. Sarah carried them all somehow, took turns swapping one child for another, her arms and back screaming in protest. Eli helped where he could, carrying Lily when Sarah's strength gave out completely. And still they walked. The contractions were coming regularly now. Every few minutes Sarah's belly would tighten, and she'd have to stop, breathe through it, wait for it to pass. Labor was starting. She knew it, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. "Mama, are you okay?" Abigail had noticed. Of course she'd noticed. "Fine, sweetheart. Just tired." "You keep stopping. Just need to catch my breath." Abigail didn't believe her Sarah could see it in her eyes, but she didn't push. They couldn't afford to talk about what was really happening. Couldn't afford to face it. Late afternoon. The sun was beginning its descent again, and they'd found no shelter, no help, no sign that anyone else existed in this frozen wasteland. Sarah's legs gave out. She didn't fall gradually. One moment she was walking, the next she was on her knees in the snow, Ruth sliding from her arms into a drift. "Mama!" Abigail's scream cut through the wind. "Mama, get up!" Sarah tried. Her legs wouldn't obey. She pushed against the snow, tried to force her body to rise, but her muscles had simply stopped working. "I can't." The words came out as a whisper. "Abby, I can't." "Yes, you can. You have to." Abigail was crying now, tears freezing on her cheeks. "Please, Mama. Please get up." The other children gathered around, their small faces terrified. Eli holding Hannah. Benjamin helping Ruth to her feet. Samuel and Lily clinging to each other. 7 children watching their mother fail them. "I'm sorry." Sarah's voice broke. "I'm so sorry. I tried so hard." "Don't say sorry." Abigail knelt in front of her, grabbing her hands. Don't you dare say sorry. You're going to get up and you're going to keep walking and we're going to find help. Do you hear me? Abby. No, you don't get to give up. You're our mama. You're supposed to protect us. Abigail's voice cracked. Please, please don't leave us too. Like their father. Like the other women. Like everyone who'd promised to keep them safe and then died anyway. Sarah closed her eyes, drew a breath, and pushed. Her legs trembled. Her whole body shook. But she rose first to one knee, then to her feet, supported by Abigail on one side and Eli on the other. Okay, she breathed. Okay, let's keep going. They managed another 100 yards, maybe 200. Sarah lost count of the steps, lost track of everything except the need to keep moving. And then, she fell again. This time she couldn't get up. No matter how hard Abigail begged, no matter how desperately the children tried to pull her to her feet, her body simply refused. Sarah lay in the snow, staring up at the gray sky, feeling the cold seep into her bones. The baby kicked inside her, fighting even as she surrendered. I'm sorry, she thought. James, I'm sorry. I couldn't save them. Mrs. Sarah, Eli's voice calm amid the chaos. Mrs. Sarah, there's someone coming. Sarah turned her head. Through blurred vision, she could see a shape approaching through the snow. A figure on horseback moving slowly, carefully. Please, she tried to call out, but her voice was barely a whisper. Please help us. The figure drew closer. Sarah could make out details now, a man in a heavy coat, sitting oddly in the saddle. And something else. Something strange about the way his leg hung. No, not hung. Missing. He was missing a leg. The man reached them and dismounted in a motion that was somehow graceful, despite his disability. He moved towards Sarah on a wooden crutch, his face hidden by a battered hat pulled low against the wind. Ma'am? His voice was rough, gravelly, like someone who hadn't spoken in days. Ma'am, can you hear me? Please. Sarah grabbed his coat with frozen fingers. My children. Please don't take from us. We have nothing left. The man knelt beside her, and Sarah saw his face for the first time. Weathered hard with lines carved deep around eyes, the color of old amber. A dark beard covered his jaw, flecked with gray. A scar ran along his left cheek, pale against tanned skin. He looked like exactly the kind of man she should be afraid of. Nobody's taking anything, he said quietly. How many children? 7. Please, they're freezing. They haven't eaten in... Shh, save your strength. He looked over at the children, his eyes cataloging each one. I've got supplies on my horse. Food, blankets, water. Why? Sarah couldn't understand. Men didn't help. Not out here. Not for free. Why would you help us? The man was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough with something that might have been old pain. Because I've walked past someone who needed help before. Can't do it again. He stood and moved toward his horse, and Sarah finally understood why he sat oddly in the saddle. His right leg ended just below the knee, replaced by a wooden peg that sank into the snow with each step. A one-legged man alone in the wilderness. And somehow, impossibly, he'd found them. What's your name? Sarah asked. He glanced back at her, and for just a moment, something flickered in those amber eyes. Something like hope. Something like fear. Caleb, he said. Caleb Stone. He reached his horse and began untying bundles from the saddle blankets, a canteen, a sack that might contain food. The children watched him with wide, uncertain eyes, too cold and hungry to hope, too desperate to run. Sarah felt consciousness beginning to slip away. The snow was actually warm now, the cold wrapping around her like a blanket. Her eyes drifted closed. Stay awake. Caleb's voice suddenly close. His rough hand cupped her face, turning it toward him. Hey, stay with me. What's your name? Sarah. Sarah Jane Callahan. Well, Sarah Jane Callahan. He draped a blanket over her shoulders, and the warmth was so sudden, so overwhelming, that she nearly sobbed. You're going to live. You and your children, all of you. You understand me. How do you know? Caleb Stone looked at her with those amber eyes, and his voice dropped to something barely above a whisper. Because I'm not going to let you die. Not today. Not ever. And for reasons she couldn't explain. Sarah believed him. Caleb moved fast. He pulled the blanket tighter around Sarah's shoulders, then turned to the children. His voice cut through the wind like a command. You, oldest girl. What's your name? Abigail. Her voice shook. Abby, I need you to take this canteen. Small sips only. You hear me? Small sips, or they'll vomit it all back up. Abigail grabbed the canteen with trembling hands. She moved to the younger children, immediately tilting water into their cracked lips with the careful precision of someone who'd been caring for others her whole short life. Boy, Caleb pointed at Eli. You know how to handle a horse? Yes, sir. Good. Lead him over here. His name's Ranger. He won't bite. Eli hesitated for just a moment, then walked toward the horse. The animal stood calm and patient, breath steaming in the frozen air. Sarah watched all of this through a haze of exhaustion. Her body had stopped shivering, a bad sign she knew, and the contractions were coming closer together now, 5 minutes apart. Maybe less. Mr. Stone. Caleb turned back to her. Just Caleb. Caleb, the baby. I think it's coming. His face didn't change, but she saw his jaw tighten. He knelt beside her again, his one hand pressing against her belly, with surprising gentleness. How far apart? 5 minutes, maybe less. How many weeks? 8 months. Too early. It's too early. Baby doesn't care about too early. Caleb's voice was steady calm in a way that made Sarah want to scream. Baby comes when it's ready. Question is whether we're ready for it. We're in the middle of nowhere. There's no doctor, no shelter. No, there's a cabin, 3 miles north. Can you ride? I don't know. Wrong answer. Can you ride? Sarah looked at him. Really looked. At the missing leg. At the wooden peg sunk deep in snow. At the hard lines of a face that had seen too much and expected nothing good. Yes, she said. I can ride. Good. Let's move. He helped her to her feet. The world spun, and Sarah grabbed his arm to keep from falling. Caleb didn't flinch, didn't buckle under her weight. He just waited until she steadied, then guided her toward the horse. Children ride in shifts. Youngest first. Older ones walk until they can't, then we rotate. They're too tired to walk. They're too alive to stop. Caleb lifted Ruth onto the horse's back, then Lily, then Samuel. The 3 youngest children clung to each other, their small bodies shaking. Abby, Benjamin, you walk with me. Eli, you lead the horse. Keep him steady. What about Mama? Benjamin asked. She can't walk. She's having a baby. Your mama's going to ride behind the little ones. I'm going to make sure she stays on. Caleb turned to Sarah. Can you mount? Aye. He didn't wait for an answer. His arm went around her waist, and with a strength that shouldn't have been possible from a one-legged man, he lifted her onto the horse behind the children. Sarah gasped as another contraction hit. Her hands gripped the saddle horn, knuckles white. Breathe through it. Caleb's voice was close to her ear. Don't fight. Just breathe. Easy for you to say. Nothing about this is easy. Breathing's just the part you can control. The contraction passed. Sarah loosened her grip, her whole body trembling. How do you know about this? About babies? Caleb had already started walking, his wooden leg punching through the snow with each step. He didn't look back. Delivered a few calves in my time. Couple of foals. 1 human baby about 10 years back. Did the baby live? Silence. just the crunch of snow under boots and hooves. "Mr. Stone, did the baby live?" "The baby lived." His voice was flat. "Mother didn't." Sarah felt cold spread through her chest that had nothing to do with the weather. "I'm not going to die." "No, you're not." Caleb glanced back at her, and his amber eyes held something fierce. "I won't let you." They walked. The sun continued its descent, painting the snow in shades of orange and pink that Sarah was too exhausted to appreciate. Baby Hannah slept against her chest, her fever finally broken. The three children in front of her huddled together for warmth. "I'm tired." Lily's small voice drifted up. "Mr. Cowboy, I'm really tired." "I know, little one, just a bit farther." "You said that before." "And I'll keep saying it until we get there. That's how walking works." Abigail stumbled in the snow. Benjamin caught her arm, pulled her upright. They kept moving, their young faces set with determination that broke Sarah's heart. "Caleb." She had to force the word out through chattering teeth. "My children, if something happens to me, nothing's happening to you. But if it does, promise me you'll get them somewhere safe. Promise me you won't leave them." Caleb stopped walking. He turned to face her, his expression unreadable. "I don't make promises I can't keep." "Then keep this one." For a long moment, he just stared at her. Then slowly he nodded. "I'll keep them safe. All of them. You have my word." Another contraction hit. Harder this time. Sarah bit down on her lip to keep from screaming, tasting blood. The children couldn't see her like this. Couldn't know how close everything was to falling apart. "We need to move faster," Caleb said quietly. "Eli, pick up the pace. Abby, Benjamin, I know you're tired, but I need you to run. Can you do that?" "Yes, sir." Both children answered at once. They ran. Not fast, they didn't have the strength for fast, but faster than before. The horse moved into a trot, and Sarah clung to the saddle with everything she had. The cabin appeared just as the last light faded from the sky. Small, rough-hewn, half-buried in snow, but solid. Real. Standing. "Thank God." The words escaped Sarah before she could stop them. "Thank God." Save the thanks for later. Caleb was already moving toward the door. "We're not out of this yet." He kicked snow away from the entrance and shouldered the door open. Sarah couldn't see inside, but she heard him moving, heard the strike of a match, saw the flicker of lamplight spill out onto the snow. "Bring them in." His voice echoed from within. "All of them. Now." Eli led the horse to the door. Caleb appeared and lifted the children down one by one. Ruth, Lily, Samuel, carrying each inside with an efficiency that spoke of practice. Then he reached for Sarah. "I can walk." "No, you can't." He pulled her from the saddle, and she realized he was right. Her legs had stopped working entirely. "Put your arm around my neck. I've got you." He carried her inside. The cabin was small, one room, a stone fireplace, a wooden bed frame with no mattress, but it was shelter. It was warmth. It was the closest thing to salvation Sarah had seen in days. Caleb set her on the floor near the fireplace, where a small fire was already beginning to catch. The children gathered around her, their faces pale and frightened. "Is Mama going to be okay?" Benjamin asked. "Your Mama's going to be fine." Caleb was already moving again, pulling blankets from his saddlebags, arranging the children against the wall. "But I need all of you to stay over here and be very quiet. Can you do that?" "Why?" Abigail's voice was sharp. "What's happening?" "Your Mama's having a baby, and I need to help her." The children went silent. Even baby Hannah stopped fussing. "Now," Caleb said. "Eli, I need you to keep the fire going. Can you handle that?" "Yes, sir." "Abby, I need you to keep the little ones calm. Tell them a story. Sing them a song. Whatever it takes to keep them quiet and distracted." "What about me?" Benjamin stepped forward, his small hands clenched into fists. "I want to help too." Caleb looked at the boy for a long moment. Then he reached into his pack and pulled out a knife. "You know how to use this?" "Yes, sir. My pa taught me." "Good. I need you to stand by the door. If anyone comes, anyone who isn't me, you yell. Loud as you can. What? Can you do that?" Benjamin took the knife with solemn reverence. "Yes, sir." "Good man." Caleb turned back to Sarah. Another contraction was building pressure and pain rolling through her body like a wave. "I need to check how far along you are. Is that all right?" Sarah nodded. She was beyond modesty now, beyond anything except the raw animal need to survive this and bring her baby into the world alive. Caleb's examination was quick and clinical. When he pulled back, his face was grim. "Baby's coming fast. You're almost fully dilated." "Is that bad?" "It's fast. Faster than I'd like. But we'll manage." He grabbed a blanket and spread it beneath her. "When the next contraction comes, I need you to push, hard as you can. Understand?" "I've done this before, twice." "Good. Then you know what to expect." The contraction came. Sarah pushed, screaming through gritted teeth, feeling her body tear itself apart from the inside. The children huddled against the wall, Abigail's voice rising in a shaky lullaby that couldn't quite drown out their mother's cries. Again. Caleb's voice was calm, steady, an anchor in the storm. "Push again. You're doing great." "I can't." "Yes, you can. Push." She pushed. Again and again and again. The world narrowed to pain and pressure, and Caleb's voice counting, encouraging, refusing to let her give up. "I see the head." His voice cracked with something that might have been emotion. "Sarah, one more push. Give me everything you've got." Sarah screamed. The sound ripped from her throat, primal and raw, as she pushed with every last ounce of strength she possessed. And then, a cry. Thin and reedy, and impossibly beautiful. "It's a girl." Caleb's voice was rough. "Sarah, you have a daughter." He placed the baby on her chest, and Sarah looked down at the tiny red-faced creature, squalling her displeasure at the world. So small, too small, but alive, breathing, fighting. She's beautiful. Tears streamed down Sarah's face. Oh God, she's beautiful. She's a fighter, just like her mama. The children surged forward, crowding around to see the new baby. Abigail was crying. Benjamin's face was split in a grin. Even Eli, stoic, guarded Eli, had something soft in his eyes. "What's her name?" Ruth asked. Sarah looked at the baby, then at Caleb, who was cleaning his hands with snow and refusing to meet her eyes. "Hope," she said. "Her name is Hope." Caleb's head snapped up. For just a moment his mask slipped, and Sarah saw something raw beneath. Pain, longing, and something else she couldn't name. "That's a good name," he said quietly. "Strong name. She was born because of you. Because you found us. Because you didn't walk past. Don't make me into something I'm not. I'm not making you into anything. I'm telling you the truth." Caleb held her gaze for a long moment. Then he looked away, his jaw tight. "Baby needs to stay warm. I'm going to tend to the horse." He was gone before Sarah could respond, the cabin door closing behind him with a solid thunk. "He's strange," Abigail said quietly. "He saved our lives." "I know, but he's still strange." Sarah pulled Hope closer, feeling the baby's warmth against her chest. Strange wasn't the word she would use. Broken, maybe? Haunted. Carrying something heavy that he couldn't quite put down. She understood that. She was carrying something heavy too. The night passed slowly. Caleb returned after an hour, his face reddened by cold, and set about making the cabin more habitable. He'd found supplies somewhere, canned beans, dried meat, a pot for heating water, and soon the smell of cooking food filled the small space. The children ate like they'd never seen food before, which Sarah supposed they nearly hadn't. She ate too, nursing Hope while spooning beans into her mouth, her body crying out for sustenance. Caleb ate last sitting, apart from the group, his back against the wall. He watched them constantly, his amber eyes moving from child to child like he was counting them, making sure they were all still there. "You should sleep," Sarah said. "I'm fine." "You haven't slept since you found us." "Said I'm fine." "And I said you should sleep. The children are safe. I'm recovering. You've done enough for one night." Caleb's jaw worked. Somebody needs to keep watch. "I'll keep watch. I just had a baby. I'm not sleeping anyway." "You need rest more than I do." "Caleb." Sarah's voice sharpened. "I'm not asking. I'm telling. Lie down. Close your eyes. Sleep." For a moment, she thought he would argue. Then slowly the tension drained from his shoulders. He lowered himself to the floor near the fire, his wooden leg stretched out in front of him. "1 hour," he said. "Wake me in 1 hour." "I will." He closed his eyes. Within minutes, his breathing had slowed and deepened the lines on his face, softening into something almost peaceful. Sarah watched him sleep. This stranger who'd appeared out of nowhere and saved her family. This one-legged cowboy who carried enough pain in his eyes to fill an ocean. "Who are you, Caleb Stone?" she wondered. "And why did you stop for us?" She didn't have answers. But for the first time in days, she thought maybe she didn't need them. Maybe it was enough that he had stopped. Maybe it was enough that they were alive. Hope stirred against her chest, making small snuffling sounds. Sarah adjusted the baby's blankets, feeling the steady rise and fall of her tiny breaths. "We're going to be okay," she whispered. "All of us. We're going to make it." She didn't know if she believed it yet, but she was starting to think she might. Morning came with pale winter light filtering through the cabin's single window. Sarah woke to find Caleb already up feeding the fire and heating water. "You let me sleep too long," she said. "I told you to wake me." "You needed rest." "So did you." "I got enough." He didn't look at her. "How's the baby?" Sarah checked on Hope, who was still sleeping peacefully. "She's fine, strong, hungry." "Good. We need to talk about what comes next." Sarah sat up, carefully wincing at the soreness in her body. The children were still sleeping, piled together in a heap of blankets and small bodies. "What do you mean?" "I mean you can't stay here. This cabin's abandoned. No supplies. No way to survive long term." Caleb handed her a cup of hot water. "There's a way station about 15 miles west. Harlow Station. Good people run it. They'll have food, medicine, real shelter. 15 miles. In this weather. With 7 children and a newborn. It's that, or freeze here when the supplies run out." Sarah looked at her sleeping children. At Hope in her arms. At the man who'd saved them all and was now telling her they had to keep moving. "When do we leave?" "Tomorrow. Give you 1 more day to recover. Give the baby time to get stronger." Caleb finally met her eyes. "I'll guide you there. Make sure you arrive safe. And then I move on." Something sharp twisted in Sarah's chest. She told herself it was just exhaustion, just the aftermath of everything they'd been through. "You're leaving us. I'm getting you somewhere safe. That's what you asked for. I asked you to keep my children safe, not to deliver us like a package and disappear." Caleb's face hardened. "I'm not the staying kind, Mrs. Callahan. Never have been." "It's Sarah, and I don't believe you." "Believe what you want. Doesn't change the facts." He stood and walked to the door, grabbing his coat from a hook on the wall. "Where are you going?" "To check on Ranger, and get some air." He paused with his hand on the door. "1 day to rest, then we move. That's the plan." He was gone before Sarah could respond. Abigail stirred, rubbing her eyes. "Was that Mr. Stone?" "Yes, sweetheart. He always leaves when things get hard. Have you noticed that?" Sarah had noticed. She'd noticed a lot of things about Caleb Stone. The way he watched the children like he was afraid they'd disappear. The way he flinched when anyone got too close. The way he spoke about the past like it was a wound that had never healed. "He's scared," Sarah said quietly. "Of what?" "Of caring about something and losing it." Abigail considered this with the gravity of a child who'd already lost too much. "That's dumb. You can't stop yourself from caring. It just happens." "I know, sweetheart, but some people haven't learned that yet." They spent the day resting, eating the last of Caleb's supplies, and taking care of Hope. The baby nursed well, her small body gaining strength with each passing hour. The other children played quiet games, their laughter tentative but real. Caleb stayed outside most of the day, finding excuses to chop wood. Check snares, tend to the horse. Every time Sarah looked out the window, he was there moving, working, avoiding. As evening fell, he finally came inside, his face reddened by cold and his arms full of rabbits. "Caught these in the snares. Should last us through tomorrow." "Thank you." He nodded curtly and began cleaning the animals, his movements quick and practiced. Caleb. "What?" "Sit down. Eat with us. Please." He froze the knife in his hand, going still. "I'm fine over here." "I didn't ask if you were fine. I asked you to eat with us." "Mrs. Callahan." "Sarah." "Sarah." He said her name like it cost him something. "I'm not part of your family." "You saved our lives. You delivered my daughter. You're keeping us alive right now." Sarah met his eyes. "If that doesn't make you family, I don't know what does." Caleb stared at her for a long moment. The children had gone quiet, watching the exchange with wide eyes. Then slowly he set down his knife. He crossed the small cabin and lowered himself to the floor near the fire, joining the circle of children and woman and newborn. "Don't expect me to say grace," he muttered. "Nobody asked you to." Sarah handed him a portion of rabbit. "Just eat." He ate. And for the first time since he'd found them, Caleb Stone didn't look quite so alone. The next morning they prepared to leave. Caleb loaded Ranger with supplies and helped the children onto the horse in shifts. Sarah carried Hope in a sling against her chest, wrapped in blankets until only her tiny face peeked out. 15 miles, Caleb said. "We'll make it by nightfall if we don't stop." "We'll make it," Sarah said. They started walking. Caleb led the way, his wooden leg punching through snow with steady determination. The children followed, stronger now, fed and rested and holding on to each other. Sarah walked beside the horse, one hand on Ranger's flank for balance. Her body ached with every step, but she kept moving. Kept putting one foot in front of the other. 5 miles in, Eli spotted something on the trail ahead. A figure. No multiple figures. Moving toward them. "Mr. Stone!" Eli's voice was tight. "Someone's coming." Caleb's hand went to the rifle at his side. "Everyone behind me. Now." The children scrambled to obey. Sarah pulled Hope closer, her heart hammering. The figures drew closer. 2 men on horseback wearing heavy coats and official-looking badges. "Morning, folks." The lead rider tipped his hat. "Name's Marshal Warren. This here's Deputy Mills. We're looking for a woman traveling with 7 children. Heard there might be a widow matching that description in these parts." Sarah's blood went cold. "Who's asking?" "Got a man in town. Victor Ashford. Says he's authorized by the Territorial Orphan Board to collect any unaccompanied minors. Claims some of your children ain't actually yours." Caleb stepped forward, positioning himself between Sarah and the marshals. "The children are with their mother. Nothing unaccompanied about them." "And you are?" "Caleb Stone. I'm escorting them to Harlow Station." Marshal Warren's eyes narrowed. "Caleb Stone. Why do I know that name?" "Don't know, don't care. These children aren't going anywhere." "Now hold on." The deputy nudged his horse closer. "Mr. Ashford has paperwork. Legal documents. Says 3 of these children are orphans from a wagon train attack. They need to be placed with proper families. Over my dead body. Sarah's voice came out stronger than she felt. Those children lost their parents. I took them in. They're mine now. Ma'am, I understand your attachment, but the law is the law. If Mr. Ashford has proper authorization, then Mr. Ashford can come talk to me himself. Caleb's hand hadn't left his rifle. Until then, we're moving on. The marshals exchanged glances. For a long, tense moment, nobody moved. Then, Warren sighed. We're not here to take anyone by force, but you should know Ashford's waiting at Harlow Station. He's determined to get those children. He can be as determined as he wants. Won't change the outcome. Warren nodded slowly. Fair enough. Just thought you should be warned. He tipped his hat again. Safe travels, folks. The marshals rode past, disappearing into the white emptiness behind them. Sarah let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Who's Victor Ashford? Caleb's jaw was tight. Trouble. The kind that doesn't go away easy. What do we do? He turned to look at her, his amber eyes hard as flint. We keep moving. And when we get to Harlow Station, we fight. They reached Harlow Station as the sun began to set. Sarah saw at first smoke rising from a chimney, the outline of buildings against the darkening sky. Her legs nearly buckled with relief. There. She grabbed Caleb's arm. We made it. Don't celebrate yet. His voice was tight. Remember what the marshal said. Victor Ashford. The name sat heavy in Sarah's chest like a stone. Maybe he's gone. Maybe he gave up. Men like that don't give up. Caleb pulled Ranger to a stop. Listen to me. When we get in there, you let me do the talking. Don't answer his questions. Don't react to anything he says. Understand? I can speak for myself. I know you can, but he's going to try to provoke you. Make you say something that can be used against you. Best thing you can do is stay quiet and let me handle it. Sarah wanted to argue. Every instinct screamed at her to fight her own battles, protect her own children. But she looked at Caleb's face, the hard set of his jaw, the calculation in his amber eyes, and understood. He knew something she didn't. Had seen something she hadn't. Fine. But if he threatens my children, if he threatens your children, I'll handle that too. They approached the station. A woman emerged from the main building wiping her hands on an apron. She was perhaps 50, with iron gray hair and a face that looked like it had been carved from the same stone as the mountains. Lord have mercy. The woman's voice carried across the snow. John, get out here. We got company. A man appeared in the doorway, older white-haired, moving with the careful deliberation of someone whose joints had started to protest. Well, I'll be. He stepped forward, squinting at the approaching group. Caleb Stone, thought you'd died out there somewhere. Takes more than a Wyoming winter to kill me, John. Caleb shook the man's hand. This is Sarah Callahan and her children. They need shelter. Martha Harlow was already moving toward the children, her hands reaching out to touch their cold faces. 7 children and a newborn John helped me get them inside. They're half frozen. Wait. Sarah grabbed Martha's arm. There's a man, Victor Ashford. The marshals said he's here. Martha's face hardened. He's here all right. Been waiting 3 days. Slick-looking fellow with papers he keeps waving around like they mean something. Do they mean something? In my experience, papers that need that much waving usually don't. Martha put her arm around Sarah's shoulders. But we'll figure that out inside. Right now you need warmth and food, and those children need beds. They entered the station. It was large, a main room with a fireplace, a long table, doors leading to what Sarah assumed were sleeping quarters. Warmth hit her like a physical force, and she nearly staggered. Easy. Caleb caught her elbow. You've been pushing too hard. I'm fine. You just had a baby 2 days ago. You're not fine. I will be fine. There's a difference. A voice came from across the room. Smooth. cultured, wrong in a way Sarah couldn't quite name. "Mrs. Callahan, I presume." She turned. A man rose from a chair near the fire, young perhaps 35, with slicked-back dark hair and clothes that were far too clean for someone who'd been waiting in a way station for 3 days. His smile showed too many teeth. Victor Ashford, representing the Territorial Children's Aid Society. He walked toward them, hand extended. "I've been so looking forward to meeting you." Sarah didn't take his hand. Neither did Caleb. Ashford's smile didn't waver. "I understand there may be some confusion about my purpose here. Allow me to clarify. 3 of the children in your care, Eli, Ruth, and Hannah, are orphans from the Dawson Wagon Train massacre. As such, they fall under the jurisdiction of the Territorial Orphan Board, which has authorized me to place them with proper families." They're with their proper family. Sarah's voice came out stronger than she felt. "Me." "With respect, ma'am, you're not their mother. You're not their kin. You're a widow with 2 children of your own and a newborn. You can't possibly provide for 8 children. Watch me." "Mrs. Callahan." Ashford's voice turned patronizing. "I understand your attachment. Truly I do. You've been through a terrible ordeal together. But attachment isn't the same as legal guardianship. These children need stability, structure, families who can provide for them properly. And you're going to find these families. That's precisely what the society does. We match orphan children with Christian families back east who can give them everything they need." Caleb stepped forward. "For a price." Ashford's smile flickered. "I beg your pardon. You heard me. How much do you charge per child?" "Mr. Stone, I don't appreciate the implication. I'm not implying anything. I'm asking a direct question. How much do the families pay you for these children?" Silence. Sarah saw Ashford's mask slip for just a moment, a flash of something ugly beneath the smooth surface before it snapped back into place. "The society operates on donations. Any administrative fees are strictly to cover costs." "Administrative fees." Caleb's voice was flat. "Is that what you call it?" "I don't know what you're suggesting, but I have legitimate authorization from the territorial governor himself." Ashford pulled papers from his coat. "Signed and sealed. These documents give me full authority to take custody of any orphaned minors in this territory." John Harlow took the papers and examined them. His face darkened. "These are dated 6 months ago." So Governor Mitchell was removed from office 4 months ago. Corruption charges. Seems he was taking bribes from various interested parties. John looked up. "Including, if I recall correctly, certain charitable organizations that dealt in children." Ashford's smile finally died. "That has nothing to do with—" "It has everything to do with it. These papers aren't worth the ink they're printed on, not anymore. The Society's authorization transcends any individual governor. The Society's authorization came from a corrupt official who was taking your money." Caleb's voice cut like a blade. "Which makes these papers evidence of fraud, not legal authority." Sarah watched Ashford's face transform. The smooth charm evaporated, replaced by something cold and calculating. "You think you're clever." His voice had lost its cultured edge. "You think you can just refuse me, and that'll be the end of it. But I have resources, connections, people who will back my claims regardless of what some frontier station master thinks about my paperwork." "Is that a threat?" "It's a fact. Those children are coming with me. Tonight, tomorrow, a week from now. Doesn't matter. I always get what I'm owed." "Owed?" Sarah stepped forward, her body shaking with rage she could no longer contain. "You're owed nothing. These children lost everything. Their parents, their homes, their entire world. And you want to take them from the one person who stayed, who kept them alive, who refused to leave them behind." "Mrs. Callahan." "No, you don't get to talk anymore." Sarah's voice rose. Eli stood over his parents' bodies and didn't cry because he had to protect his sister. Ruth hasn't spoken about her mother in weeks because the grief is too heavy for her small shoulders. Hannah is 14 months old, and she's already learned that the world is cruel. And you want to sell them to the highest bidder. I'm not selling. You are. Everyone knows it. You're a child trader, hiding behind fake papers and fancy words. Sarah was crying now, tears streaming down her face. These children are mine. I don't care about blood. I don't care about legal guardianship. They're mine because I chose them, because I refuse to let anyone else hurt them. Ashford's face had gone red. You're a hysterical woman who doesn't understand. Caleb moved. One moment he was standing beside Sarah, the next, his hand was around Ashford's throat, slamming him against the wall. You call her hysterical again. Caleb's voice was quiet, deadly. See what happens. Caleb. John Harlow's voice was sharp. Let him go. He threatened her children. I know, and he'll answer for it. But not like this. For a long moment, Caleb didn't move. Sarah could see his hand trembling, not with weakness, but with restraint, with the effort of not squeezing tighter. Then he released Ashford and stepped back. Ashford collapsed against the wall, gasping. His cultured mask was completely gone now, replaced by naked hatred. You just assaulted a representative of the Territorial Children's Aid Society. I'll have you arrested. I'll have you hanged. You'll have to catch me first. Caleb's voice was ice. And men with one leg tend to be hard to chase. This isn't over. Ashford straightened his coat, trying to recover his dignity. I'll be back. With real marshals. Real authority. And when I return, those children are coming with me whether you like it or not. He stormed toward the door. Before he reached it, Eli stepped into his path. The boy was small, 9 years old, thin from weeks of insufficient food, but his eyes held something ancient. Something that had seen too much death, too young. My pa said men like you always get what's coming. Eli's voice didn't waver. He said the world has a way of evening scores. Move aside, boy. He also said that the measure of a man isn't what he takes, it's what he protects. Eli held Ashford's gaze. You don't protect anything, you just take. Ashford raised his hand. Sarah lunged forward, but Caleb was faster. He caught Ashford's wrist before it could connect with Eli's face. You touch that child, Caleb said softly, and I'll take your hand, slowly, starting with the fingers. Ashford yanked his arm free. His face was purple with rage. You're all dead, every last one of you. This place, these children, that crippled bastard, I'll burn it all to the ground. He shoved past Eli and disappeared into the night, the door slamming behind him. Silence filled the room. Then Martha Harlow moved, gathering the younger children against her. It's all right, babies. He's gone. He can't hurt you. But he said he'd come back. Ruth's voice was tiny. He said he'd take us. Nobody's taking anyone. Sarah knelt beside the girl, pulling her close. I promise you, Ruth. Nobody's taking you anywhere. That's what Mama said, before the bad men came. Sarah felt her heart crack. I know, sweetheart. I know it's hard to believe promises after everything that's happened, but I'm going to keep this one, I swear it. Caleb had moved to the window, watching Ashford ride away into the darkness. He'll be back. His voice was flat. Tomorrow, maybe the next day, with more men and bigger guns. Then we'll be ready. John Harlow was already checking a rifle mounted on the wall. Martha, get everyone fed and settled. Caleb, we need to talk. The two men moved to a corner of the room, their voices low. Sarah watched them, her arms still wrapped around Ruth, her mind racing. This wasn't over. It was barely beginning. The children ate in silence, stew that Martha had prepared, bread still warm from the oven. Real food. Hot food. Sarah watched them shovel it down their small faces, intent on the task of filling bellies that had been empty too long. Hope nursed at her breast, tiny fingers curling and uncurling. Sarah looked at her daughter's face and felt something fierce rise in her chest. I will not let them take you, any of you. I will die first. Mrs. Callahan. Caleb's voice came from behind her. I need to tell you something. She turned. His face was grim. What? John's heard of Ashford. He's not just some con man with fake papers. He's connected to a network that operates across 3 territories. They've been trafficking children for years, moving them east, selling them to wealthy families who don't ask questions. How is that possible? How does nobody stop them? Because they're careful. Because they have money. Because the people who should be stopping them are taking bribes instead. Caleb sat down across from her. Last year they moved through a town called Red Creek, took 6 children. Families couldn't do anything because Ashford had authorization. What happened to the children? Caleb's jaw tightened. Nobody knows. Families never saw them again. Some folks tried to track them down, but the trail went cold somewhere in Kansas. Sarah's stomach turned. He was going to do that to my children. Eli and Ruth and Hannah. Yes. We have to stop him. Not just tonight, forever. That's what I wanted to talk to you about. Caleb leaned forward. John sent word to the territorial marshal's office 2 days ago when Ashford first showed up. If we can keep him here, keep him occupied until the marshals arrive. How long? 3 days, maybe 4. And he's just going to wait. After what happened tonight. No. He's going to try something. That's why we need to be ready. Sarah looked at her children, all 8 of them now, including Hope, at their small faces still pinched with worry, even as they ate. At the way they kept glancing toward the door, waiting for the next bad thing to happen. What do you need me to do? Right now, get some rest. You just had a baby. Your body needs time. I can't rest. Not with him out there. Sarah. Caleb's voice softened. I know you want to fight. I know every instinct is telling you to stay awake, stay alert, protect your children with your own 2 hands. But the best thing you can do for them right now is be strong enough to fight when it matters. That means rest. That means recovery. And what will you do? Keep watch. That's what I'm good at. Sarah studied his face, the hard lines, the old scars, the amber eyes that had seen too much. Why are you doing this? You could have left at the cabin. Could have left us at the door of this station. Why are you staying? Caleb was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. 10 years ago, I found a wagon train. Day too late. Raiders had hit them the morning before. Everyone dead except one woman. He paused, his hand clenching on his knee. She was hurt bad. Dying. Nothing I could do to save her. But she begged me to find her daughter. Said the girl had run into the woods when the attack started. Said she might still be alive. Did you find her? I looked. For 3 weeks. Covered every inch of that territory. Never found a trace. Caleb's voice cracked. I failed her. Promised a dying woman I'd save her child and couldn't do it. That wasn't your fault. Wasn't it I was a day late? If I'd been faster, smarter, better, maybe I could have stopped the whole thing. Maybe that woman would still be alive. Maybe her daughter would have grown up with a mother instead of being lost in the woods. Caleb. That's why I stopped for you. That's why I'm staying. He met her eyes. Because I can't save that woman. Can't find her daughter. Can't undo the past. But I can help you. I can protect these children. I can make sure that this time I'm not too late. Sarah reached out and took his hand. He flinched but didn't pull away. You're not too late, she said. You found us in time. You delivered my daughter. You got us here safely. Whatever happened 10 years ago, whatever you couldn't do, you're doing it now. It doesn't feel like enough. It never does, but it is. They sat like that for a moment, connected by grief and guilt and the desperate need to do better than they'd done before. Then Caleb gently pulled his hand free. Get some sleep. I'll wake you if anything happens. Sarah wanted to argue, But her body was screaming for rest, and Hope was already asleep against her chest, and the other children were yawning as Martha herded them toward the sleeping quarters. "Thank you," she said, "for everything." Caleb nodded once, his face unreadable, and turned back toward the window. Sarah let Martha guide her to a small room with a real bed, the first real bed she'd seen in weeks. She laid Hope in a drawer that served as a makeshift cradle, then climbed under blankets that smelled of soap and safety. She was asleep before her head hit the pillow. The sound of breaking glass woke her. Sarah sat up, heart pounding, reaching automatically for Hope. The baby was still sleeping undisturbed. Voices, shouting, coming from the main room. She grabbed Hope and ran. The main room was chaos. Glass from the window littered the floor. John Harlow stood with a rifle, Martha behind him, and in the doorway, Ashford, with 4 men, all armed. "I told you I'd be back." Ashford's smile was triumphant. "Did you think I was joking?" Caleb stepped forward, positioning himself between Ashford and the doorway to the sleeping quarters where the children were. "You're making a mistake, Ashford. The only mistake was letting you assault me without consequences." Ashford gestured to his men. "Take the orphans, leave the rest." "Nobody's taking anyone." Caleb's hand rested on his rifle. "Turn around. Walk away. This doesn't have to end badly." "It ended badly when you put your hands on me." Ashford pulled a pistol from his coat. "Now move aside, cripple, or I'll put you down like the lame horse you are." Sarah's blood went cold. "Don't!" Her voice came out strangled. "Please, take me instead. I'll go with you. Just leave the children." "Sarah, no!" Caleb didn't take his eyes off Ashford. "I'll cooperate. Whatever you want. Just don't hurt them." Ashford laughed. "You think I want you, a worn-out widow with a newborn? I want the children. Healthy children fetch good prices. Old women don't. They're not for sale." "Everything's for sale, Mrs. Callahan. You just haven't found the right price yet." Ashford raised his pistol, pointing it directly at Caleb. "Last chance. Move or die. Shoot me, and you won't make it out of this room alive." Caleb's voice was ice. "John's got a rifle pointed at your head. Martha's got a shotgun under that table. And I promise you, one-legged or not, I can put a bullet in your brain before I hit the ground." Ashford's smile wavered. His eyes flicked to John, to Martha, calculating odds. "You're bluffing." "Try me." The standoff stretched. 1 second, 2, 5. Then a small voice broke the silence. "Mr. Stone." Everyone turned. Eli stood in the doorway to the sleeping quarters, Ruth behind him, Hannah in his arms. "Eli, get back." Caleb's voice was sharp. "Take your sisters and go." "No." Eli walked forward, his thin body trembling, but his face set. "Mr. Ashford, sir." Ashford lowered his pistol slightly, confusion flickering across his face. "What? You want us, right? Me and Ruth and Hannah." "Eli, don't." Sarah started. "If we come with you, will you leave everyone else alone?" The question hung in the air. Sarah felt her heart stop. "Eli," her voice cracked. "No, absolutely not. You can't keep protecting us forever." Eli's voice was steady, older than his 9 years. "And he's going to keep coming back. Keep hurting people. If we go with him, it stops." "It doesn't stop. He'll just take you somewhere we can never find you." "Maybe." Eli looked at her, and his eyes held something that broke her. "But at least you'll be alive. Hope will be alive. Abby and Ben and the others. You can have your family back." "You are my family." Sarah was crying now. "You're my son Eli. Ruth is my daughter. Hannah is my baby. I didn't give birth to you, but I chose you. That matters more." "Mrs. Sarah." "No." She moved forward, putting herself between Eli and Ashford. "You don't get to sacrifice yourself. You're 9 years old. You don't get to make that choice." "But..." "No buts. We fight together or we fall together. That's what family does." Ashford laughed. "How touching." The widow thinks she can protect her stolen children by making speeches. He raised his pistol again. Enough of this. Men take the... A shot rang out. Ashford's pistol flew from his hand. He screamed, clutching his fingers. Everyone spun toward the source. Martha Harlow stood with a smoking shotgun, her face hard as granite. Nobody threatens children in my house. Her voice was deadly calm. And nobody calls them stolen. Those babies belong to Sarah Callahan. Anyone who says different answers to me. Ashford's men hesitated. Their leader was disarmed, bleeding, and an old woman with a shotgun had just proven she wasn't bluffing. Get out! John Harlow stepped forward, rifle trained on the nearest man. All of you, now, before my wife decides to aim higher. This isn't over. Ashford hissed, cradling his wounded hand. I'll be back with more men, with the law, with... You'll be back in chains. A new voice from outside. Victor Ashford, you're under arrest. Sarah turned. 3 men on horseback had appeared in the doorway, badges gleaming on their chests. The lead rider dismounted and walked inside. Deputy Marshal Thomas Walker. He nodded to John. Got your message. Rode hard to get here in time. Seems we arrived at just the right moment. Marshal, this is an outrage. Ashford's voice had gone shrill. These people attacked me. I have legal authorization. You have forged documents from a disgraced governor, a warrant for child trafficking in Kansas, and now an attempted kidnapping with witnesses. Walker pulled out iron shackles. Turn around. You can't do this. I have connections. You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it. They shackled Ashford and his men and led them outside. Sarah watched them go, her body shaking so hard she could barely stand. It was over. It was finally over. Eli hadn't moved. He stood in the middle of the room, his small shoulders hunched, tears streaming down his face. Sarah went to him, knelt beside him, pulled him into her arms. You were so brave, she whispered. So brave and so stupid. Don't you ever try to sacrifice yourself again. I just wanted to keep everyone safe. I know, baby, I know. She held him tighter. But you don't have to carry that burden alone. That's what family means. We carry it together. Eli sobbed against her shoulder. Ruth joined them, then Hannah, then all the children piling together in a heap of tears and relief and overwhelming love. Caleb stood apart, watching. Sarah looked up at him, her face wet. Thank you. He nodded once, his expression unreadable. Then he turned and walked outside into the cold night air. Sarah wanted to follow him, wanted to say something more. But Hope was crying, and the children needed her, and there would be time later. Time for everything. Sarah found Caleb behind the barn, staring at the stars. He didn't turn when she approached. Just stood there, his breath fogging in the cold air, his wooden leg planted firm in the snow. You should be inside. His voice was rough. With your children. Martha's watching them. They're asleep. Sarah stopped beside him, close enough to touch, but not touching. You left. Needed air. You always need air when things get emotional. Caleb's jaw tightened. Don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. Sarah turned to face him. Every time one of those children shows you love, you run. Every time I try to thank you, you disappear. Why, you're imagining things. Eli called you Mr. Stone tonight, but earlier when he thought he was going to die, he called you something else. Caleb went very still. He called you Pa. Sarah's voice softened. He didn't even realize he did it. But I heard, and I think you heard too. He was scared. Kids say things when they're scared. Kids say the truth when they're scared. They don't have time for lies. Caleb finally looked at her. His amber eyes were bright with something he was fighting hard to control. What do you want from me, Sarah? I want you to stay. The words hung between them. Sarah felt her heart pounding, felt the cold seeping through her thin coat, felt the weight of everything she was asking. I can't. Caleb's voice cracked. I can't be what you need. You already are. I'm a one-legged drifter with nothing to offer. No home, no money, no future. Just a horse and a rifle and more ghosts than any man should carry. I don't care about any of that. You should. Well, I don't. Sarah stepped closer. I care that you found us when we were dying. I care that you delivered my daughter. I care that you faced down a man with a gun to protect children that aren't even yours. Sarah, I care that Eli looks at you like you hung the moon. That Ruth actually laughed today for the first time since her mother died. That even baby Hannah stops crying when you hold her. Sarah's voice broke. I care that my children trust you. And they don't trust anyone anymore. Caleb turned away. His hand, the one hand he had clenched at his side. You don't know what you're asking. I'm asking you to stop running, that's all. Just stop. I've been running for 10 years. Don't know how to do anything else. Then learn. We'll figure it out together. He was quiet for a long moment. Sarah watched his shoulders the way they held tension like a bowstring about to snap. There's land, he said finally. About 20 miles north of here. Used to be a homestead. Family abandoned it 3 winters back when the father died. Place has been sitting empty ever since. Sarah's breath caught. What are you saying? I'm saying. Caleb turned to face her. I'm saying maybe I could fix it up, make it livable, somewhere your children could grow up safe. Our children. What? You said my children. But they're not just mine anymore. They're ours. All 8 of them. Caleb stared at her. Something shifted in his face, a crack in the armor he'd been wearing for a decade. I can't be their father. Nobody's asking you to replace James, or the parents the orphans lost. Sarah took his hand. But you can be something else, something new, someone who stayed when everyone else left. That's a low bar. It's the only bar that matters. Caleb looked down at their joined hands. His fingers, rough, calloused, scarred, curled around hers. I'll disappoint you. Guaranteed. I don't know how to be part of a family. Don't know how to stay in one place. Don't know how to... Then we'll learn together. Sarah squeezed his hand. I don't know how to run a homestead. Don't know how to raise 8 children alone. Don't know how to survive another winter without help. But I'm willing to try if you are. The silence stretched. 1 heartbeat, 2, 10. Then Caleb let out a breath that seemed to carry the weight of 10 years of running. Okay. Okay. Okay, I'll stay. I'll try. He met her eyes, and for the first time, there was something like hope in them. But I'm warning you now, I'm going to make mistakes. Lots of them. So will I. I snore. So does Benjamin. I wake up fighting sometimes. Bad dreams. Could hurt someone. I'll warn the children to wake you from a distance. Caleb shook his head, but a ghost of a smile played at the corner of his mouth. You're not going to make this easy, are you? Nope. Never have been easy. Ask James. The name slipped out before Sarah could stop it. She felt a pang, grief, and guilt, and something else she couldn't name. Tell me about him. Caleb's voice was soft. Your husband. You don't want to hear about him. Yes, I do. Sarah looked at the stars, the same stars James had looked at on their wedding night, when they danced in the yard of her father's farm and promised each other forever. He was kind, stubborn, terrible at cards, but kept playing anyway because he said losing was more interesting than winning. She smiled at the memory. He wanted to give our children a better life. That's why we left Missouri, why we joined the wagon train. He had this dream about a little ranch out west, where the kids could run free. Good dream. He was a good man. Sarah's voice cracked. He deserved better than dying in the dirt with a bullet in his chest. deserved better than leaving his children fatherless and his wife. She couldn't finish. Caleb didn't say anything, just pulled her close, his one arm wrapping around her shoulders, holding her while she cried. "I'm sorry." She pulled back after a moment, wiping her face. "I don't know where that came from." "You lost your husband 3 weeks ago. The crying's going to come whether you want it or not. Does it get easier? The crying or the loss?" "Both." Caleb was quiet for a moment. "The crying stops eventually. The loss?" He shook his head. "That just changes shape. Gets smaller, fits better. But it never goes away completely." Speaking from experience. Speaking from watching. Never had anyone to lose, not really. He looked at her. "That's changing now." Sarah felt something shift in her chest. Not love. It was too soon for love. But something. A beginning. A possibility. "We should go inside. It's freezing out here." "Yeah." But neither of them moved. Caleb. "Yeah. Thank you. For stopping. For staying. For—" Sarah gestured vaguely at everything. "All of it." "Don't thank me yet. Haven't done anything worth thanking." "You have. You just don't see it." They walked back to the station together. Not touching, but close. Closer than either of them had let anyone get in a long time. The next morning, Sarah woke to find the children already up and eating breakfast. Martha had cooked eggs, real eggs, and the smell made Sarah's stomach growl. "Mama." Benjamin spotted her first and ran to wrap his arms around her waist. "Mr. Stone said we're going to live on a ranch." Sarah looked up. Caleb was sitting at the table, looking deeply uncomfortable, as 7 children peppered him with questions. "Is it big?" Ruth was asking. "Does it have horses? Will there be chickens?" "It needs work," Caleb said carefully. "Lot of work. Might not be fit to live in for a while." "We can help," Eli said. "We know how to work. Pa taught us." "That's—" Caleb's voice caught. "That's good. Going to need all the help I can get." "Even me." Lily tugged at his sleeve. "I'm only 5. "Especially you. 5-year-olds are the best workers. Everybody knows that." Lily beamed. Sarah joined them at the table, hope cradled against her chest. "When do we leave?" "Few days. Need to gather supplies. Figure out what we'll need to get through winter." Caleb glanced at John. "Harlow's agreed to sell us some essentials on credit. We'll pay him back when we can." "No rush," John said. "After what you folks went through, least we can do is help you get started. We're going to have a real home." Abigail's voice was wondering. "A real home with beds and a fireplace and—" "Easy now." Caleb held up his hand. "Might not have all that right away. Place needs fixing up bad. We'll be sleeping on the floor for a while." "We've been sleeping on the floor for weeks. That's nothing new." "Abby's right," Samuel said. The quiet boy rarely spoke, but when he did, everyone listened. "Floors don't matter. Being together matters." Caleb looked at him for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Yeah, you're right. Being together's what matters." They spent 3 days at Harlow Station. 3 days of rest and recovery. 3 days of the children slowly coming back to life, running and playing and fighting over toys like children were supposed to. Sarah watched it all with a mixture of joy and grief. Joy because they were alive, because they had a future now. Grief because James wasn't here to see it, because the parents of the orphaned children weren't here to see their babies laugh again. On the second night, Martha cornered her in the kitchen. "You and Caleb Stone." The older woman's voice was direct. "What's happening there?" "Nothing's happening." "Don't lie to an old woman. I've been watching you watch him, and watching him watch you." Sarah felt heat rise to her cheeks. "It's complicated. Love always is. It's not love. It's—" Sarah struggled for words. "It's necessity. We need each other to survive. Huh? Martha handed her a dish to dry. And the way he looks at you, that's survival too. He looks at me the same way he looks at everyone. Child, that man hasn't looked at anyone the way he looks at you in all the years I've known him. He's guarded, careful, keeps everyone at arm's length. Martha shook her head. But he lets you in. I can see it. You're imagining things. I'm old, not blind. There's a difference. Martha turned to face her fully. I'm not saying rush into anything. Your husband's barely cold in the ground, but don't close yourself off to possibilities either. Caleb Stone is a good man. Damaged, yes. Carrying more than his share of pain. But good. I know he's good. Then let him be good to you, and let yourself be good to him. Martha smiled. That's all I'm saying. Sarah thought about that conversation for the rest of the day. That evening she found Caleb in the barn checking on Ranger. The horse nickered softly as she approached. He likes you, Caleb said without turning around. How can you tell? He hasn't tried to bite you yet. That's high praise from Ranger. Sarah laughed. It felt strange laughing. Strange but good. Can I ask you something? Caleb glanced at her. Depends on what it is. The woman, the one you couldn't save, the one who asked you to find her daughter. Sarah hesitated. What was her name? Caleb went still. For a long moment he didn't answer. Margaret, he said finally. Margaret Walsh. And her daughter, Rose. She was 8 years old, had red hair like her mother and a laugh that... His voice broke. I never heard it. Only knew about it because Margaret told me, in between begging me to save her. I'm sorry. Don't be. You weren't there. I'm still sorry. For you. For what you went through. Caleb turned to face her. His eyes were wet, though no tears fell. I dream about her sometimes. Margaret, she's always asking the same thing. Did you find her? Did you find my Rose? And I have to tell her no. Every time. Every dream. No, I didn't find her. No, I couldn't save her. No, I failed you. That's not failure. That's doing everything you could and still coming up short. Feels like the same thing. It's not. Sarah stepped closer. Failure is not trying. Failure is riding past because it's easier. Failure is choosing yourself over someone who needs help. She touched his arm. You didn't fail, Margaret. You tried. That matters. Does it? Yes. It's the only thing that matters. Caleb looked at her hand on his arm. Then he covered it with his own. Sarah. You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know that I see you. I see what you carry, and I don't think less of you for it. You should. Well, I don't, and I won't. She squeezed his arm. So you can stop trying to convince me you're not worth caring about. It's not going to work. Something shifted in his face. Not quite a smile, but close. You're stubborn. I prefer the term persistent. Same thing. It's really not. They stood there for a moment, connected by touch and understanding, and the fragile beginnings of something neither of them had expected. The homestead, Caleb said quietly. It's not much. Might not ever be much. But I'll make it safe. For you and the children. That's a promise. I know you will. And I'll try... He stopped struggling with words that clearly didn't come easy. I'll try to be what you need, even if I don't know what that is yet. Just be yourself. That's enough. Nobody's ever said that to me before. Then everybody else was wrong. The next morning, Deputy Marshal Walker came by before they left. He had news about Ashford. He's talking. Walker sat at the table, hat in hands, trying to make a deal. Says he can give us names, the whole network. Buyers back east, officials who took bribes, everything. Will it work? Sarah asked. Will he walk free? Not a chance. What he's done trafficking children, assault, attempted kidnapping. He's going away for a long time. But the information he's giving us, it's going to help us shut down the whole operation. Good. Caleb's voice was hard. Men like him deserve worse than prison. Maybe, but prison's what the law allows. Walker stood and extended his hand to Sarah. Mrs. Callahan, I'm glad we got there in time. Those children of yours, they're lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have them. Walker turned to Caleb next. And you, Mr. Stone, I heard about what you did, how you found this family, kept them alive through everything. That's not nothing. Just did what anyone would do. No, most people wouldn't. That's what makes you different. Walker tipped his hat. Safe travels, both of you. He left. Sarah watched him go, feeling something she hadn't felt in weeks. Closure. It wasn't complete. Ashford's network was still out there, still hurting children. But this piece, the piece that had threatened her family, was over. Done. They could move on. Ready. Caleb was already gathering supplies. Almost. Sarah looked around the station at Martha and John, who had sheltered them at the walls that had protected them from Ashford's men. I need to say goodbye first. Martha hugged her so tight Sarah couldn't breathe. You take care of those babies. The older woman's voice was thick. And take care of yourself. You hear me? Yes, ma'am. And that man of yours? Martha glanced at Caleb. Don't let him run. He'll try. They always do. But don't let him. I won't. John shook her hand formally, then surprised her with a hug of his own. You ever need anything, you come back here. Understand? This place is always open to you. Thank you for everything. They loaded the wagon, a proper wagon this time purchased from John, with the promise of payment when they could manage it. The children climbed aboard, chattering with excitement about their new home. Eli sat beside Caleb on the driver's bench. The boy had been his shadow for days now, watching, learning, copying everything the man did. Mr. Stone. Yeah. When we get to the homestead. Eli hesitated. Are you going to teach me to shoot? Caleb glanced at him. Why? Because I want to protect my sisters, like you protected us. You're 9 years old. I know, but I won't be 9 forever, and someday you might not be there. Someday I might have to be the one who protects people. Eli's voice was serious. I want to be ready. Caleb was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. When you're old enough. Not before. And you learn everything else first, how to work, how to care for animals, how to be part of a family. Then when you've earned it, I'll teach you to shoot. Promise? Promise. Eli smiled. It was small, barely there, but it was real. The first real smile Sarah had seen from him since they'd met. She felt tears prick her eyes and turned away so no one would see. They traveled for 2 days. The weather held cold but clear. The snow beginning to melt as winter slowly loosened its grip. The children passed the time with songs and stories, their voices carrying across the empty landscape. On the second evening they crested a ridge and saw it. The homestead sat in a valley below, sheltered by hills on 3 sides. There was a cabin, small, rough, clearly in need of repair, and a barn that had seen better days. A creek ran along the eastern edge, its water glinting in the fading light. Is that it? Abigail asked, her voice hushed. Is that our home? That's it. Caleb's voice was rough. What do you think? It's perfect. It needs work. So do we. Abigail looked at him with eyes too wise for her 10 years. But we're still here, still standing. That's what matters. Caleb stared at her. Then slowly he laughed. The sound was rusty, unpracticed, like something he hadn't used in years. Yeah, you're right. That's what matters. They descended into the valley as the sun touched the horizon. Sarah held Hope close, watching their new home grow larger with each step. It wasn't much, A broken-down cabin on abandoned land. A dream held together by stubbornness and desperation. But it was theirs. "Welcome home," Caleb said quietly. Sarah looked at him, at this damaged, guarded man who had saved her family against all odds. At the children gathered around him, looking at him like he was the center of their world. "Welcome home," she echoed. And for the first time in weeks, she believed it. The first month was brutal. The cabin roof leaked in 6 places. The barn door hung off its hinges. The well had partially collapsed, forcing them to haul water from the creek in buckets that froze if they walked too slow. But they worked. All of them. Together. "Eli, hold that board steady." Caleb balanced on his good leg hammer raised. "Don't let it slip." "I got it." The boy's arm shook with effort, but he didn't complain. Never complained. Sarah watched from the doorway, hope bundled against her chest. The other children were scattered around the property, Abigail teaching Ruth and Lily their letters, Benjamin and Samuel gathering firewood, baby Hannah sleeping in a makeshift cradle near the fire. This was their life now, hard work, frozen fingers, aching muscles, and somehow impossibly joy. "Mama!" Abigail appeared at her elbow. "Ruth wants to know if she can write a letter to her old neighbors, the ones back in Missouri." "Of course she can. We'll send it when we go to town for supplies." "She's scared they won't remember her." Sarah knelt beside her daughter. "Tell Ruth that the people who love us don't forget. Ever. Even when we're far away." "Is that true?" "It's true." Sarah touched Abigail's cheek. "Your father's far away now. Do you still remember him?" Abigail's eyes filled. "Every day." "Then Ruth's neighbors will remember her too. Love doesn't disappear just because people do." That night they gathered around the fire for dinner. It wasn't much beans again with salt pork Martha had sent along, but nobody complained. The children ate with the focused attention of people who'd learned not to waste a single bite. "R. Stone." Samuel's quiet voice broke the silence. "Can I ask you something?" "Go ahead." "When you were in the war, did you ever get scared?" Caleb set down his bowl. "Every day." "But you still fought." "Scared doesn't mean you can't do something. Just means it matters enough to be afraid of losing." Samuel considered this. "I was scared when the bad men came. The ones who killed my parents. I hid under the wagon and didn't come out until it was over." "That was smart. Hiding kept you alive." "But I didn't help. Didn't fight. Just hid like a coward." "Samuel." Caleb's voice sharpened. "Look at me." The boy lifted his eyes. "You were 6 years old. 6. There was nothing you could have done except die alongside your parents. Hiding wasn't cowardice. It was survival." Caleb leaned forward. "Your parents would want you alive. That's all that matters." "How do you know what they'd want?" "Because that's what all parents want. For their children to live, to grow up, to be happy." Caleb glanced at Sarah. "Even if they can't be there to see it." Samuel was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Thank you, Mr. Stone." "You can call me Caleb, if you want." "Can I call you Pa?" The question hung in the air. Sarah saw Caleb freeze, saw the flash of panic in his eyes. "Samuel," she started. "It's okay." Caleb's voice was rough. "If that's what you want to call me, I'd be honored." Samuel smiled. It was small, barely there, but it was real. "Okay, Pa." After the children were asleep, Sarah found Caleb outside staring at the stars again. "You handled that well," she said softly. "Handled it terribly. Nearly ran out of the room. But you didn't. You stayed. You answered him." "Barely." Caleb shook his head. "Sarah, I don't know how to do this. Be a father, be part of a family. Every time one of those kids calls me Pa or looks at me like I'm supposed to have answers, I feel like I'm drowning. That's normal." "Is it?" When I had Abigail, I was terrified, convinced I'd drop her or feed her wrong or somehow break her. James had to talk me off the ledge every single day. Sarah smiled at the memory. Being scared doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It means you care enough to worry. What if I mess up? What if I fail them? You will. We both will. That's not the question. Sarah took his hand. The question is whether we keep trying anyway. Whether we stay even when it's hard. Caleb looked at their joined hands. I'm not good at staying. You're learning. Am I? You're here, aren't you, 4 weeks in, still here, still working, still showing up every morning. Sarah squeezed his fingers. That's staying, Caleb. That's all it is. He was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. For something bad to happen. For you to realize you're better off without me. That's not going to happen. You don't know that? Yes, I do. Sarah turned to face him fully. Because I made a choice. I chose this family. I chose you. And I don't unmake choices just because things get hard. Even when I wake you up screaming from nightmares, even when I forget how to be human and disappear for hours, even then. Sarah reached up and touched his face. Caleb Stone, I need you to hear something. Really hear it. What? You are not broken. You are not damaged goods. You are not a burden. Her voice cracked. You are a man who has been through hell and came out the other side still capable of kindness, still capable of love, still capable of saving a widow and 7 children who had no right to survive. Sarah, I'm not finished. She held his gaze. You think you're not good enough. You think you don't deserve this family. Well, I'm telling you that you do, and my opinion is the only one that matters. So you can stop arguing and start believing. Caleb stared at her. His eyes were bright with tears he was too proud to shed. I don't know how. Then I'll believe for both of us, until you catch up. She pulled him close. He resisted for just a moment. Old habits, old fear. Then his arm came around her, and he held on like she was the only thing keeping him from drowning. Thank you, he whispered against her hair. For not giving up on me. Never, not ever. Spring came slowly then, all at once. The snow melted. The creek swelled with runoff. Green shoots pushed up through the mud, and suddenly the world was alive in a way it hadn't been for months. The children exploded out of the cabin like prisoners freed from jail. They ran and shouted and rolled in the new grass, their laughter carrying across the valley. Mama, look! Benjamin held up a frog he'd caught near the creek. His name is Frederick. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Put him back before he dries out. But I want to keep him. Frogs need water to survive. If you love him, let him live where he belongs. Benjamin considered this with the serious gravity of an 8-year-old. Then he carried Frederick back to the creek and set him free. Sarah watched him go, her heart full to bursting. You're good at that. Caleb appeared beside her holding Hope. The baby had grown in the past months, fat and healthy, and demanding just like her siblings. Good at what? Teaching them, making them understand things without making them feel stupid. James used to say I had a gift for explaining, said I should have been a teacher. Maybe you still could be, when there are more families out here, when there's a proper school. Sarah looked at him. You think there will be more families? Territories opening up, railroads coming through eventually. Won't always be just us out here. Is that good or bad? Both. More people means more danger, but also more help, more community. Caleb adjusted Hope in his arms. These kids deserve to know other children, have friends their own age, not just each other. They have each other. That's not nothing. No, it's not. He looked at the children playing in the distance. But they deserve more than just surviving. They deserve to live. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. When did you become such a philosopher? Spending time with you. Your optimism is contagious. Is that a complaint? It's the closest thing to a compliment I know how to give. She laughed. It felt good laughing, natural in a way it hadn't been for a long time. Caleb. Yeah. I think I might love you. He went very still. Hope gurgled happily in his arms, oblivious to the weight of the moment. You think... I know, but I didn't want to scare you. Too late. His voice was rough. Been scared since the day I met you. Scared of what? This. Exactly this. Caring about someone. Having something to lose. He finally looked at her. I spent 10 years making sure I had nothing worth taking. Then you came along with your stubborn spine and your 7 children and your ridiculous refusal to die, and suddenly I had everything to lose. Is that bad? It's terrifying. His amber eyes held hers. But I wouldn't trade it. Not for anything. So you love me too. He stopped. Tried again. I don't know if I know how to love. Don't know if I ever learned. But whatever this is, this thing I feel when I look at you, when I hear the children laugh, when I wake up and you're still there, if that's love, then yes, I love you. Sarah reached up and kissed him. It was their first real kiss, soft and tentative and perfect. When they pulled apart, Caleb was smiling. A real smile, not the ghost of one. Mama, Mr. Stone, look. They turned. Abigail was running toward them, dragging Ruth by the hand. There's riders coming. 3 of them. Sarah's blood went cold. Caleb was already moving, passing Hope to her, and reaching for the rifle that was never far from his hand. Get the children inside, now. Caleb. Do it, Sarah. Please. She gathered the children with quick efficiency, herding them into the cabin despite their protests. Through the window, she watched Caleb walk toward the approaching riders, his wooden leg leaving uneven tracks in the mud. The riders stopped about 20 yards out. Sarah couldn't hear what they were saying, but she saw Caleb's posture change from defensive to surprised to something she couldn't quite read. Then he turned and called out, Sarah, come out here. She hesitated, looking at the children. I'll watch them. Eli's voice was steady. Go. She went. As she approached, she saw the lead rider more clearly. A man about her age with a familiar face she couldn't quite place. Mrs. Callahan. The man dismounted. Sarah Jane Callahan. Yes, who's asking? My name is Robert Walsh. I'm Margaret Walsh's brother. Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. She looked at Caleb, saw the same shock in his eyes. Margaret Walsh, she repeated. The woman from, the wagon train. Yes. Robert's voice was thick. I've been looking for her for 10 years. Looking for my niece Rose. I never stopped. I'm sorry. Sarah reached for his arm. I'm so sorry. But your sister, she died. Years ago. Caleb was there. He tried to save her. I know. Robert's eyes were wet. That's why I'm here. I don't understand. Rose. Robert swallowed hard. I found her. She's alive. Sarah heard Caleb make a sound, something between a gasp and a sob. That's not possible. His voice was strangled. I looked. For weeks. She was gone. She wasn't gone. She was found. By a family heading east. They raised her as their own. Robert reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a letter. She knows everything now. About her mother, about the attack, about you. Caleb's hand shook as he took the letter. About me. You're Caleb Stone, the man who held my sister while she died, the man she begged to find her daughter. Robert's voice cracked. Rose wants to meet you, to thank you for trying, for not giving up. I did give up. I stopped looking. No, you stopped finding. That's different. Robert put his hand on Caleb's shoulder. Margaret knew you'd tried. In her final moments she knew. Rose knows too. That's why she sent me." Caleb couldn't speak. Sarah saw tears streaming down his face, the first tears she'd ever seen him cry. "Where is she?" Sarah asked. "Rose. Back east. Married now with children of her own. She can't travel, but she wrote." Robert gestured to the letter. "It's all there. Everything she wanted to say." Caleb opened the letter with trembling hands. His eyes moved across the words, and with each line something in him seemed to loosen, to release. When he finished, he looked up at Sarah. "She forgives me," he whispered. "She says I gave her mother peace, that knowing someone was looking even if they never found her helped her survive." "Because it's true." Sarah took his hand. "You mattered, Caleb, even when you thought you'd failed." Robert stayed for dinner. He told them about Rose, about her life, her children, her happiness. He told them about the years of searching the leads that went nowhere, the despair that almost broke him. And then he told them about hope. "She never stopped believing," Robert said. "Never stopped thinking that someone out there had tried to save her mother. That belief kept her going through dark times, gave her something to hold on to." "She built a whole life," Caleb said quietly. "From nothing. We all do. That's what surviving means." Robert looked at the children gathered around the table. "You've built something too. All of you." After Robert left with promises to return to bring letters from Rose to stay connected, Caleb disappeared outside. Sarah found him by the creek sitting on a rock, the letter clutched in his hand. "You okay?" "No." He looked up at her. "I spent 10 years hating myself. 10 years believing I'd failed. And now you know the truth. I don't know what to do with it. The guilt was—" He laughed bitterly. "The guilt was comfortable. I knew how to carry it. This is different. This is healing. It feels strange because you're not used to it." "How do you do that?" "Do what?" "Make everything sound simple when it's the most complicated thing in the world." Sarah sat beside him. "Because it is simple, Caleb. Not easy simple. You did your best. You tried. You cared. That's all any of us can do. And if it's not enough, then we try again, and again, and again." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "That's what love is. Not being perfect. Just being willing to keep trying." They sat there as the sun set, watching light paint the valley in shades of gold and red. The children's laughter drifted from the cabin, all 8 of them, including Hope, who had learned to giggle just last week. "Sarah." "Yeah." "Marry me." She sat up. "What?" "I know it's sudden. I know you're still grieving James. I know I'm not what you deserve." Caleb's voice shook. "But I love you. I love these children. I want to spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of this family." "Caleb." "You don't have to answer now. Take time. Think about it. I just needed you to know that—" "Yes." He stared at her. "What?" "Yes. I'll marry you." "You don't have to decide this fast." "I know. But I already decided. Weeks ago. Maybe months." Sarah took his face in her hands. "You're exactly what I deserve, Caleb Stone. You're exactly what these children deserve. And I'm tired of waiting for the right moment when every moment with you is already right." Caleb kissed her. Not soft this time, desperate, hungry, full of everything he couldn't say with words. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, he pressed his forehead to hers. "I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to make you happy. Just keep staying. That's all I need. I can do that. I know you can." The wedding was simple. John and Martha Harlow came out from the station bringing food and laughter and the warmth of old friends. The children served as witnesses, all 8 of them standing in a row, their faces scrubbed and their clothes clean for the first time in weeks. Caleb wore his best shirt. Sarah wore a dress Martha had helped her make, simple calico with blue flowers that matched Hope's eyes. John performed the ceremony, his voice steady and sure. "Do you, Caleb Stone, take Sarah Jane Callahan to be your wife, to love and cherish through good times and bad, as long as you both shall live?" "I do." "And do you, Sarah Jane Callahan, take Caleb Stone to be your husband, to love and cherish through good times and bad, as long as you both shall live?" Sarah looked at Caleb, at his amber eyes, his scarred face, his wooden leg, his one good arm that had held her through every storm. "I do." "Then by the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife." John smiled. "You may kiss your bride." Caleb kissed her, and the children erupted in cheers. Later, after the Harlows had gone and the children were asleep, Sarah and Caleb sat on the cabin porch, watching stars appear one by one. "Mrs. Stone." Caleb tested the words. "Sarah Stone." "Sounds strange." "Sounds right." He took her hand. "Thank you." "For what?" "For seeing me. The real me underneath all the damage. For believing I could be more than I was." "You always were more. You just couldn't see it. I see it now." He lifted her hand to his lips. "Because of you." The years passed. The homestead grew, a new room added, then another, then a proper barn and a chicken coop and a corral for horses. The children grew too, shooting up like weeds, their voices deepening, their faces changing. Eli became a young man, steady and serious, taking over more and more of the ranch work. Abigail developed her mother's gift for teaching and started a small school for the children of families who'd begun settling nearby. Benjamin discovered a talent for building things and announced he wanted to become an architect. Samuel overcame his quietness and became the family's storyteller, spinning tales for the younger children every night. Ruth found her voice again, talking about her birth parents without pain, keeping their memory alive through stories and songs. Lily grew into a fierce young woman who took no nonsense from anyone. Hannah, little baby. Hannah, who'd been dying of fever when Caleb found them, became the fastest rider in the territory, able to outrun boys twice her size. And Hope. Hope became everything her name promised. A light in dark times. A reminder that good things could come from the worst circumstances. Sarah gave Caleb 2 more children, twin boys they named James and Robert, one for each man who'd shaped their lives. Caleb held them for the first time with tears streaming down his face, this man who'd once believed he had nothing to offer. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Sarah found him behind the cabin staring at the stars again. "Old habits?" she asked, coming to stand beside him. "Good memories." He pulled her close. "I was just thinking about the day I found you, the day everything changed, the day you stopped running, the day you gave me a reason to stay." He kissed the top of her head. "I never thanked you for that. You thank me every day. Every time you wake up beside me, every time you help one of the children, every time you choose this life over the one you used to have. It's not a hard choice anymore." "I know," Sarah smiled. "That's how I know it's real." They stood together in the darkness, this unlikely family they'd built from tragedy and stubbornness and the simple refusal to give up. Eli joined them first, then Abigail, then one by one, all the children. 12, now the original 8, plus the 4 they'd added gathering around their parents under the stars. "Pa!" Hope's voice soft in the darkness. She was 10 now, old enough to understand the weight of the question she was about to ask. "Why did you stop for us that day in the snow?" Caleb was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked at Sarah, and she saw everything in his eyes, the pain, the healing, the love, the hope. "Because I'd walked past someone who needed help once before. Told myself it wasn't my business, that I couldn't make a difference." He took a breath. "That woman died. Her daughter grew up without a mother, and I spent 10 years carrying that guilt. But you found us. I found you. And I made a different choice. Instead of walking past, I stopped. Instead of running, I stayed. He looked at all of them, his children, his family, his reason for being. And that choice gave me everything. So, we're your second chance, Benjamin said. Like in the stories. You're not my second chance. You're my only chance. The one that mattered. Caleb pulled Sarah closer. Your mother taught me that. She taught me that family isn't about blood or perfection or deserving. It's about choosing each other. Every day. No matter what. And staying, Lily added. You always say staying is the hardest part. It is. But it's also the most important. Caleb looked at his daughter. All his daughters, all his sons. The children he'd found dying in the snow, and the ones he'd helped bring into the world. Anyone can leave. Anyone can give up. Staying when things get hard, that's what makes a family. The children were quiet, absorbing this. Then Eli spoke. I'm glad you stayed, Pa. Me too, Ruth said. Me too, Samuel echoed. One by one they all said it, 12 voices young and old, united in a single truth. I'm glad too, Caleb whispered. More than you'll ever know. Sarah leaned into him, feeling his arm tighten around her. This man who'd been broken, this woman who'd been lost, these children who'd been abandoned by fate and found by love. They'd built something here in this valley. Something real. Something lasting. Not perfect, never perfect, but true. And that was enough. That was everything. The stars wheeled overhead, the same stars that had watched over them on that first terrible night in the snow. But now they seemed different, warmer, closer, like they were celebrating too. Come on, Sarah said finally. Let's go inside. It's getting cold. One more minute. Caleb held her close. I just want to remember this, all of us, together, safe. You'll have plenty more moments to remember. I know, but this one's special. He kissed her forehead. This is the one where I finally believe it's real. Sarah smiled and let him have his moment. His minute stretched to 5 to 10 and still nobody moved. They just stood there, a family forged from fire and snow, held together by stubborn love and the simple choice to stay. When they finally went inside, Caleb paused at the door. His hand traced the carving he'd made their first week here, letters burned deep into the wood. Stone Callahan Homestead. We stay, we love, we live. Still the best thing I ever wrote, he said. Still the truest thing anyone ever said. Sarah took his hand. Now come to bed. Tomorrow's going to be another long day. They're all long days. And we'll face them all. Together. Caleb smiled a real smile, the kind that had become easy over the years, and followed his wife inside. The door closed behind them. The stars continued their ancient dance. And in a small cabin in a valley in Wyoming territory, a family slept peacefully, safe and warm and whole. Because sometimes salvation comes as a one-legged cowboy who refuses to walk past. And sometimes that is miracle enough.